There are 15 plants our forebears grew close about their homes, not for their beauty, but to draw peace and protection and good spirit into the house. While the modern world spends its money on candles and crystals and little apps that promise calm, there are living plants that our grandmothers would not have kept a home without. Plants set by the doorway on purpose to guard the threshold and settle the rooms within. And there is a 15th plant, the one I am building you toward, that was called the holy herb across more lands than any other, swept through temples and laid on altars from the Druids to the Romans, trusted as a bridge between the everyday and the sacred for thousands of years. Hold that plant in your mind, friend, because everything we plant today counts down to it. For most of a lifetime you have been taught that a plant is only decor, a splash of green to fill a corner, and that anything more is mere superstition. But the old ways held something our grandparents never doubted, that the living things we gather around us change the feeling of a place. We did not lose that knowing because it failed us. We got hurried, and we let the garden centre sell us looks in place of meaning. And the old wisdom, I should say plainly, is history and old belief, not medical or spiritual counsel from me. I'm Brother Benedict. 40 years I've kept my monastery's herb garden, and I've read what monks and healers wrote of these plants for 800 years. This is history and old lore, not medical or spiritual advice, so take it as the record of what our forebears believed and did. If you like the old plant lore and the ways people once warded and blessed their homes, give this a subscribe. It's free, and it helps an old monk keep this garden going. Now, let me show you what the old brothers wrote down. Number 15 is lemon verbena, the bringer of good cheer. Brush your hand through its long leaves, and a bright, clean lemon scent lifts off it that seems to clear the very air of a room. The old country folk wash their floors and their doorsteps with lemon verbena water before any new beginning, a birth, a wedding, a fresh start under a hard year. They held that it did more than sweep out the stale, that it drew in hope and lightness where there had been gloom. And here even the modern laboratory nods, for a bright, living scent truly does lift a low mood. Your small act this week, keep a pot of it by the seat where you take your morning cup and pass your hand through it each day. But number 14 was grown to soften the hearts of a quarrelsome house, and that is next. Number 14 is the scented geranium, the healer of the hearth. It is the most overlooked of all these plants, and that is a pity, for its rose-scented leaves carry a gentle, peacemaking air that the old wives prized. Where the true rose gets all the fame for matters of the heart, the scented geranium gives the same soft feeling in a far easier plant, thriving on a bright sill with almost no fuss. Folk grew it in the rooms where tempers ran hot, and carried a leaf in the pocket and brushed it before a hard conversation to steady themselves. The record is plain. It was the plant of homes that wished to be kinder. Your small act set one where the family gathers and crush a leaf before a difficult talk. But number 13 was carried into battle for courage, and that is next. Number 13 is yarrow, the plant of courage. With its feathery leaves and flat heads of small flowers, yarrow was the warrior's plant across old Europe, carried into the fight and hung over the door against fear. The tradition held that it did more than shield you from the ill will of others, that it helped a soul find its own backbone, hold its own line, and stand firm after hard times had left it shaken. It was the plant folk reached for when they needed to feel stronger than they were. And it asks almost nothing, growing happily in poor soil and spreading a little more each year, which the old people took as a sign of its steady, hardy nature. Your small act, grow it near the door and let it remind you, every coming and going, that you are stronger than you know. But number 12 opens the doors of sleep itself, and that is next. Number 12 is mugwort, the plant of dreams. This is where the old plant lore turns most mysterious. For thousands of years, mugwort was the plant of dreamers, stuffed into pillows, hung by the bed, its dried leaves burned before sleep to call up dreams that were vivid and clear and worth remembering. The tradition held it thinned the veil between the waking mind and the sleeping one, never forcing anything, only making that quiet country easier to reach. Folk woke with sharper dreams and better memory of them. It grows readily, so readily you must keep it penned, and a small potted plant in the bedroom was the old way. Your small act, tuck a little dried mugwort into your pillow and see what the night brings. But number 11 was the great purifier, named in Scripture itself, and that is next. Number 11 is hyssop, the great cleanser. Here the old belief and my own faith meet, for hyssop stands right in the pages of the Bible, used in the rites of purification, the very plant of the psalm that prays, "Cleanse me, and I shall be clean." Across many traditions, it was trusted to clear a heavy air from a home after illness or a bitter quarrel, its clean, minty scent standing for a fresh start. Folk made bundles of it to sweep through the rooms, or steeped it to wash the floors and reset the feeling of a house. And it draws the bees and butterflies besides, which brings its own gladness to a garden. Your small act, grow it in a sunny spot and cut a bundle to freshen a room after a hard week. But number 10 bore the name of an archangel, and that is next. Number 10 is Angelica, the guardian named for heaven. It is a tall, striking plant with great umbrella heads of flower, and it was named for the archangel Michael himself, believed for centuries to cool down a watchful, protecting presence over a home. Folk planted it by the doorway and along the edges of the property as a guardian, carried its root as a charm, and burned it as a cleansing incense to invite that sense of being watched over. Its whole bearing is grand and grounding, sweet and a touch musky at the root. For any soul feeling exposed and unguarded, the old people held that the very presence of Angelica made a house feel safe. Your small act, set one near the entrance where you feel it standing watch. But number 9 is tended daily as an act of devotion, and that is next. Number 9 is holy basil, which many know as Tulsi, the guardian of the threshold. It is sacred in the Hindu tradition and kept by the front door to invite blessing and protection, a fragrant herb with a clove-like scent, easy to grow and deeply revered. And here is the beautiful part, the old way understood. You do not merely grow it, you care for it as a practice, the daily watering becoming a small meditation, the tending an offering. The plant, they held, answers that devotion with an ever stronger protecting presence at the door. Whatever else you take from this, take that the act of faithful tending is itself the medicine. Your small act, keep it by the entrance and water it by hand each morning with a moment of stillness. But number 8 fills a whole house with joy through its scent alone, and that is next. Number 8 is jasmine, pure gladness in a flower. When jasmine blooms, its sweet, heady scent fills every room, and few things shift the feeling of a home so fast. Across Asia and the Near East, it was offered on altars and grown by the windows so its fragrance could pour in through the house. The tradition held it lifted a heavy heart, invited love and harmony, and in some old beliefs drew blessing to the home when it flowered. And there is plain truth under it, for a beautiful scent can pull a soul clean out of a dark mood. It makes a house smell like heaven, the old folk said, and feel like it too. Your small act, grow it near a window you open, and let the evening air carry it in. But number 7 turns a room into a sanctuary, and that is next. Number 7 is the gardenia, the maker of sanctuary. If jasmine is joy, the gardenia is deep peace, its pristine white flowers and creamy scent long tied to purity, prayer, and truly sacred space. Folk laid its flowers on altars and used its scent for meditation, for it steadies the mind like few things can. It can be a fussy plant, wanting just the right care, and the old wisdom made even that a gift. For tending a hard plant teaches patience and devotion, and when at last it blooms, the reward feels like a blessing has entered the house. Your small act, if you have the patience for it, keep one where you sit to pray or think, and let its scent mark that corner as set apart. But number 6 crowned the victors of the ancient games, and that is next. Number 6 is bay laurel, the plant of victory and plenty. For thousands of years, in Greek and Roman lands, its glossy leaves stood for success and prosperity, and the victors of the old games were crowned with laurel. Households kept it by the door to welcome abundance, and folk would write a wish upon a dried bay leaf and burn it to send the intention out. It is a practical treasure too, a potted tree you can grow, cook from, and keep for this old work all at once. The tradition made it the temple of plenty, growing in the corner of the room. Your small act, keep a potted bay by the front door, and slip a leaf into your purse for good fortune, as folk have done for an age. But number 5 stands guard with thorns, and that is next. Number 5 is hawthorn, the guardian of boundaries. Here the old law turns fierce, for the thorny hawthorn, with its white flowers and red berries, was trusted for centuries as a stern protector. Folk planted hawthorn hedges around the bounds of a property, hung its branches over the door, and treated the tree with real respect, even a little awe. The thorns stood for defence, the flowers for blessing, the berries for nourishment, and together the old people held they made a whole protection that both guards and provides. In the Celtic tradition especially it was honoured and half feared, a tree you formed a bond with rather than trifled with. Your small act, set a hawthorn at the edge of your ground, where its old guardian's work can root deep. But number 4 has gathered whole villages in peace for over 800 years, and that is next. Number 4 is the linden, the peace tree. And here is one I teased you with at the start. For over 800 years, the linden has been planted by doorways and in the middle of village squares, set there on purpose to make a place of calm where a community could gather. Its heart-shaped leaves and honey-scented flowers carry a gentleness you can feel, and the old European towns planted it where folk would meet and settle their disputes under its quieting shade. Families set lindens by the house to soften hot tempers and guard against strife, and the tree was said to have a patient, motherly presence, like a grandmother watching over the household. Let me tell you a thing about our own. There is a great old linden in the middle of our cloister garth, older than any brother living, and in the heat of July, when it flowers, the whole square hums with bees, and the air turns sweet, and I have watched more than one hard argument between tired men melt away under it without a word of mine. The novices sit beneath it to read, the old monks doze there. I cannot prove to you what that tree does, but I have felt it for 40 years, and I trust it. Even a small potted variety carries a little of that peace. Your small act, plant a linden where your family gathers, and let it work on the years to come. But number 3 was the guardian no Mediterranean grandmother would live without, and that is next. Number 3 is rue, the old guardian against ill will. Across Italy and Greece and the lands beyond, no grandmother would keep a home without rue growing near it, hung dried above the door or grown in a pot at the very entrance. Its blue-green leaves carry a sharp, unmistakable scent, and the old belief held it could take up the ill will and the bad feeling that came toward a house before it ever crossed the threshold. It was no decoration, the old people were firm on that. It was protection, a guardian that never sleeps and asks for nothing. One honest caution from the herbals: its sap can trouble the skin in strong sun, and it is not for children or pets to eat, so grow it respectfully near the door and no more. Your small act, set a pot of rue at your entrance in the old Mediterranean way. But number 2 turned rooms into temples across the whole ancient world, and that is next. Number 2 is frankincense, the temple plant, and again the old law and my own church meet, for its resin has been burned in temples and churches and holy places for thousands of years to lift the spirit and mark a space as sacred. The living tree is rare and hard to keep, wanting bright light and warmth and sharp drainage, slow-growing and precious, which only made it dearer to those who tended one. Just to be near it, the tradition held, was to breathe a little of that temple air, and when its resin is burned, the bright, faintly lemony smoke has been tied to prayer and to reaching upward for as long as we have records. It is the plant that turns a plain room into a place set apart. Your small act, if you cannot keep the tree, burn a little true frankincense resin where you pray, as the old world did. And now, friend, we have arrived. Number 1 is the plant I promised you from the very first breath, the holy herb itself. Number 1 is vervain, and here is where I close the loop I opened with you at the start. It was called the holy herb across more traditions than any other plant on this list. It was sacred to the Druids, used in the purification rites of Rome, gathered with careful ceremony and treated with enormous respect, and held in the old European folk tradition to be a bridge between the human world and the divine. Temples were swept with vervain, altars were blessed with it, sacred spaces were cleansed with its smoke and its water, and here is the wonder that makes it the perfect ending, friend. The plant itself is modest, a plain thing with small purple flowers on tall spikes, growing wild in the meadows where no one gives it a glance. Yet across continents, across 1,000 years and more, people who never met each other reached for this same humble weed when they wanted to bless and cleanse and guard a home. That is not the mark of a passing fancy. That is the mark of something our forebears trusted with their whole hearts. Folk hung it above the door for protection and blessing, and made vervain water to cleanse the house. Your small act, grow vervain by your entrance, and trust its long history to keep you company. That is the holy herb of the Druids and the Romans and the old folk of Europe, and now you know it when you see it. So how did we ever forget all this? It was not always so. Go back a few short generations before the great garden trade took hold after the war, and folk still chose the plants around their homes with meaning as much as looks. Then the nurseries learned it was far more profitable to sell a pretty thing that pleased the eye for a season than to teach the old reasons a plant was set by a door, and the wellness shops later learned to sell you peace and protection in a jar or an app instead. The men selling the ornament and the men selling the candle each had a living to make from your forgetting. It was not a wicked plot, friend. It was no conspiracy. It was only money, doing the thing money does, and hear this plainly. Your not knowing these old ways is no failing of yours. You were sold the pretty picture and taught to smile at the rest as superstition. The knowing was nearly lost in a single lifetime, your own, and simply by sitting here you are gathering a little of it back. And I will give you one honest thread of modern science to hold, so you know the old folk were not wholly dreaming. When the scientists at NASA studied how to clean the air of a sealed craft, they found that living plants truly do draw the poisons out of the air of a closed room, leaving it fresher and easier to breathe. Our grandparents could not have named a single compound. They only knew that a house full of the right green things felt lighter, safer, kinder to live in. They were right by feel, and now the laboratory has caught them up, the way it so often does in the end. That is the pattern of nearly everything I have shown you today, the old knowing first, and the proof arriving centuries late. Here is what I would have you carry from an old monk who has kept the same beds for 40 years. To fill your home on purpose, with living things chosen for peace and protection and gladness, is to make your rooms your own again, a sanctuary you tend rather than a space you merely furnish. That is not really about plants at all. It is about being the keeper of your own threshold, the maker of the feeling under your own roof, rather than a soul who must buy calm by the jar and protection by the app. A house tended with intention becomes a shelter in a way a furnished room never can. The brothers who wrote these things down for 800 years were saving that keeping, hand to hand down the ages, so it would still be here, waiting for you. You have only to reach down and pick it back up, one plant at a time. Now, do one thing for me before you go. Drop a comment below and tell me just 2 things. First, which of these 15 plants you will bring home first, and whether you are after peace or protection or purification. And second, tell me which plant your own mother or grandmother kept by the door, the one this video brought back to you. I read as many of your comments as these old eyes allow, and the patterns in them never cease to move me. Thank you for spending this time with me here in the garden, friend. Go in peace and look after